So you might have to refresh my page, but it's on. It should be on there. Let me make sure it's on there. Let's see. Nope, not yet. Let's see. Allison Engel. Here it is. Allison Engel. Yeah, it's on. It's on now. So
Okay.
anything you say can and will be held against you.
Right.
So we're gonna get some tech stuff worked out here. First, we're gonna share a little bit to the Soulogy group. Allison's gonna share to her page, and then we'll roll the show out here in just a couple of minutes. Let's see. Here. Galactic Federation, 1111. All right, and angels. All right, 25 people in the house. Hello, Roseanne Edwards, Lori Noker, Nasia Sia, Debrielle, Michael
Hi,
Van
Lori.
Patten. Cotton Heart's here. She's coming on in about 3 hours. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about this show. Mary Ginsburg, Sean Phillips, Diane Richards, Francis Conlon, Diana Beaumont, and they're coming in too fast. Hello, everybody. 32 people. Hey. All right. I see some new faces. All right. Okay. I'm Todd Medina, Soul Speaks 5D. It's a conversation. Today it's with Allison Engel. She does some extraordinary work and very unique stuff, very intense. So I'm excited. She's got a new book coming out in this month? Next month?
They're still working on formatting and the cover photo, which is really exciting. It's going to be ridiculous, of course.
Yeah. You just tell me when you want me to pull these photos up too. So so I'm glad to have you back. You were on before. I follow your stuff. I don't follow a lot of people, but I like to go in and grab your stuff and see what you got. Sometimes I like to share your stuff because they're funny. I particularly like that one. A couple of Jason Estes brought it up yesterday. Did you see that meme where the boots on the child's face, and then they had the second picture?
Like
he's
holding it. Yeah.
He said that sums it all up. Yeah.
Pretty much.
You have just and I don't remember all the details, but you have like this the planetary stuff going on, the archetypal type of thing, and you have, I think it's a specific name you have for what you're into or what your expertise is in. What's it called?
So I've coined myself a depth astrologer because what I do is very much depth psychology mixed with astrology with the help of your chart or the transits. We can see, really what's in the collective unconscious, but what's for you. And so my journey was very much, just going directly into 5D and everything from that. Right? Just all the archetypes in the subconscious, the archetypes in the cosmos, and kind of just, and now just bringing it forth so people can understand the human psyche from up and what we're experiencing and what healing actually looks like. From a trauma or, lots of behavioral aspects, and it's all in your chart. And so we're going with your birth chart. It's just there. And so, yes, it's amazing. And I love every second of it because I was obsessed with this psychology from the time I was little. And so being able to analyze at this level, which includes energetics, as you guys know, it's just a huge key in what we're experiencing is exploring, the 5D through our sixth sense, if you will, just into it, knowing, just bringing our own version of, the collective unconscious. We're all kind of dissecting what we're experiencing, cohesively. And so through astrology, we can do that really well.
Yeah, and so I asked you before the show, what's going on? You said there's a lot going on. So do we approach it from, or how do you want to approach it from the archetypal part of it, the astrological part of it,
Yeah,
whatever you, yeah.
so the eclipse is actually at 0 degrees of Leo, and this is the end of the last 18 months of eclipse cycles. So it's
Wow.
really starting a new chapter of our lives, and it's really walking into the unknown in real time. And I was watching some of your shows earlier today, and that's really challenging. For me especially, my whole chart stops in the fourth house, and so this fifth house Leo energy is very foreign to me. Of stepping out of my comfort zone and coming forth to bring this knowledge and share the wisdom that they've given me. And so it's challenging, but it's at 0 degrees of Leo. And so anytime that there's a planet at 0 degrees in your chart or in the ingress of any sign, it's a very youthful energy. And so it's new and it's fun and playful. I have I have Pluto at 0 degrees of Scorpio, and so that's where my depth psychology comes in. And just I need to know, I need to understand it, right? And so, but I bring a very playful energy about it, where other people are very fearful of that aspect of their lives. So I'm just like, but it's so fun, and it's the
Yeah.
only thing there is, and so yeah.
Almost like they take it too serious, and I've been guilty of that. But I've also experienced, and that's why I love your stuff, the wisdom of the humor. Like, don't take yourself so seriously. It's like a merry-go-round.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind
Yeah.
of how I see your stuff too. It's like you'll put up a post, and I don't know all the intricacies of it, but you'll say, how's it feel? We're in this, 0 0 at Leo, and this and that's happening. Or one of the things that's happening, which again, I'm not real well versed in it, is this whole thing about what these 5 planets are all in their home base right now, and there's no planets in retrograde through March, and you're saying we're just entering this 0 point of Leo, which is playful and youthful, and yet we have this period going up until, I guess, what, March the 5th. What's that all going to be like, or do we have any kind of uh, feel for that?
Well, so the degree definition of the eclipse is actually a divorced couple. The definition, so each sign has, its archetypal imprints and understanding and dialect, but so the degree definition of the eclipse is actually a divorced couple coming back together and
Oh, wow.
hanging out like nothing ever happened and really getting along. And so, with it being Leo, it's our masculine then coming in to marry our feminine because of all this intuitive knowing that's come through us. But now it's time to shine. And it's time to shine in the youthful glow and just play in business and really bring forth the divine mechanism of business aspects of just our pure creative genius coming forth and bringing what we are, just our essence, right? But
Yeah,
that's a very vulnerable place to be in, to be seen and heard and execute that
yeah,
properly, in the world stage while while we stay in our authenticity.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what jumps out at me, some of the words that jump out at me, or what I'm seeing in my work and feeling as a evolving masculine energy, is the Leo thing with the masculine, playful, but vulnerable, raw, authentic, and then of course, I guess the upside of it, or the flip side of it, being that magical creativity, collaboration. I'm seeing all that, and I can't really put it into words like you're doing it, but those words kind of jump out, you
Yeah,
know.
and with all the planets going direct, it's like there's no putting the brakes on here. There's no stopping what we can create. And so if you're holding back, you're creating more suffering for yourself because you wanted this, and now with the energy of Jupiter and Sagittarius and also the North Node in Cancer, it's a very gentle energy, and it's
Yeah,
very benefic because Jupiter is the most benefic of all the planets, and his home sign is kind of overpowering Saturn in its home sign, and Mars in its home sign, Neptune is in its home sign, and so this we're just kind of glowing, and it's very soft and gentle for now. Tomorrow, as the moon gets fully eclipsed, we shall see what that brings. But for now, with Jupiter in its home sign, for me, I have this placement, and so it's just beautiful energy that
Yeah.
2019 is. I don't know if you saw, but there was a woman who did a video about the magnetic sphere or the
Yeah.
magnetosphere, and it just blew, blew. But actually, I did some research, and at that time, Mercury was passing over the galactic center right on that day, and so the galactic center is like 29 degrees Sagittarius, and so right at that time is when we saw that storm. And so, really interesting stuff as far as, you know, analyzing here. I love analysis of any kind. And so, yeah, just dissecting it, analyzing it, and then regurgitating it is kind of my field. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And
So
there
the
seems
South,
to
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No,
No,
you go
sorry.
ahead. Everyone said no. I was going to say and even for like laymen like me, like what you're talking about, the geomagnetic, and then there's this stuff coming out for the last 3 or 4 months where the North Pole is actually physically moving at a very rapid pace, and that's just as an example. There's these physical proof, these physical things that are actually not more than just in our personal lives and our personal experience.
Well, I
Yeah,
think that has a lot to do with the magnetosphere shifting because then the poles are going to shift because those are magnetic poles. And so, yeah, like it's funny
yeah,
that you brought that up because, yeah, I've heard that. And so, um, but each of the archetypes too is by mechanism bipolar. We're gravitating between an under exaggeration of what we can accomplish here and an over exaggeration. And so these
wow,
are behavior mechanisms between what we can actually accomplish and what we actually need to do. And so that Saturn in Capricorn it's going to take hard work, like hard work. It's not going to be easy. And so all the magical children, because that's one way that a wound can exist, is through a magical child perspective that is a dissociated realm, which a lot of people in spirituality fall into because there's a thin line between madness and genius, and we are
wow,
teetering that line. And so when they have this archetype, they're just in no man's land and they can't really comprehend reality or come back to reality in order to manifest and gain and do what Jupiter's doing in Sagittarius. It just wants to give and give and give and give, but we have to fall in line with Saturn though too because it's going to take time to build all this stuff. So
So it sounds like an important part of it is being aware, like you said, and understanding it, and then really, and I don't want to sound cliche, but really integrating these polarities that are so broad.
absolutely, yep. And that's shadow work. Is really looking at your deficit or your resentments. I think that was my most recent post was Jordan Peterson's quote on the first part of integrating your shadow is to consult your resentments. And so,
Ooh,
what do you want? Like, what do you truly want? Because it's in your shadow. And so, your biggest wound, especially in your chart, it's your Pluto, is your greatest power. And that's actually what you're here to transform and rebirth into in this lifetime. And
wow.
so your shadow is literally your power piece, and integrating that is a substantial part of what you have to do to come into full alignment with your genius
Wow.
because your
Go,
greatest fear is your biggest asset.
yeah. It's like go into your madness to find your genius. Go
You
into,
have to.
yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
because it
That's,
is madness,
yeah,
because it's
yeah,
pure creativity. So it's insane what
yeah.
you think, well, not necessarily what you think, but what you're being asked to, provide for other people. To others, it looks insane, It doesn't make sense in real time. And so that's Neptune is our higher selves that we're to birth through our vessel, which is Saturn. So integrating all those pieces into a cohesive reality, because if you don't integrate those pieces, then you're still the magical child and you're dissociated, you're not walking on your 2 feet, you're relying on someone else to do the work for you, you're pissed off that other people are doing things in a certain way and you're still concerned about what other people are doing wrong, and focus there. And so there's a lot of work to do and it's not easy. And that's why, because I've walked this alone, that I have made something that I need to provide for people to make this easier,
Yeah.
a much easier way to understand what it is, what it looks like.
I like that. I like that example of the child. It's almost like the child is out there in the fantasy or the fairy tale, and I like the word you use, disassociate. But to bring that into I don't know what you just said, but really embody it and bring it into this experience. Uh, yeah, that's powerful. And I like what he said too, Jordan Peterson, what you said, because we use the word a lot. We use the word resistance, and sometimes when I think about it in myself, or even in watching others, how it's very hard to recognize something you're resisting, because, but if you replace that word with what he used, resentment. What do you resent? That's a much easier way to identify what we call a shadow, which is, like you said, where our power is. Wow.
So if you look at the world stage and you're still holding contentment for some certain person or, public figure, and you can't really quite figure out what it is, there's a piece in there for you, a big piece, that you want to integrate then to become fully empowered.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of shadow in that though, because you have to figure out what you're playing with, because that's dicey then. You know, for me to put myself out there, and become successful, or, and be fulfilled in ways I want to be fulfilled, there's a lot of shadow casting is what I call it, in other people, that are successful on this plane, you know, that I don't understand why they're successful and I'm not. Well, I haven't done the work. I haven't put myself out there. I haven't made a name for myself, and so you have to get real honest about what it is. You can't lie to yourself about what it is you truly want.
I love that, what you said about someone on the world stage, or or say more well known, and you used he used the word resentment, then that word contentment. So if I look at, for instance, someone who's very prominent right now, like Donald Trump, that's actually a great opportunity for exploration into yourself based on what you're telling me as I'm understanding it. Because if I'm overly content with this figure, I'm overlooking the shadow that's there. But on the other hand, if I'm overly resentful of this figure, there's also the flip side of that. So that's a really cool way.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
because the liberal side of things is way too open and they're way too inclusive, right? They want to include everyone and everyone should have all of the things and have everything paid for. And whereas the Republicans are very exclusive, they want to
yeah,
build walls, they want to block other people out. And so, as we know, it's marrying the divine masculine and divine feminine. You can't
yeah,
just give everyone what they need to survive necessarily and then also have them develop. So you
yeah,
can't just provide people with all the necessities of life and then still, have them striving
yeah,
to be successful, because there's an exclusive proponent to achievement and success. But if you're looking at Trump as a shadow aspect, of course, he's America's shadow. And so he's everything that we deny, but we've been conditioned
yeah,
to. So he's the worst of our conditioning. He's like a high chair tyrant archetype. So he's like a 3-year-old who's like a a fucking hellion, right? And he's just sitting in his high chair and like throwing food at everyone and fucking screaming and yelling. And I can see him as a child like doing
Yeah.
that. And so, not to say that there's anything wrong, because we admire success, right?
Yeah.
And we also resent success. So that's a big part of our shadow. And so other countries don't necessarily have that aspect within their collective unconscious, because they don't have similar conditioning,
Yeah.
because their governments are set up, a lot differently.
Yeah.
But there's also, go ahead.
No, it would seem that this whole thing playing out is kind of centralized here. And is there a prominent archetype or prominent archetypes that are in front of us collectively right now?
I don't watch any TV. I don't prescribe to any mainstream. I can't ingest it. Like, it's like so compartmentalized and fragmented that it's hard for me to partake in it. And
Yeah, yeah,
so the little that I do, I see it on Facebook. And so, but there's a lot of healthy aspects of building a wall,
yeah,
like, because we, as Saturn and Pluto are in Capricorn, need to build. We need to build, and we need to become successful with our divine gifts. And so
yeah,
it's really about building a wall. And so instead of content, I meant contention, as far as
yeah,
still resentment, but and so if we have contention about having to do the work or taking a lot of time, to build successes, or put ourselves out there,
yeah,
that's our own masculine deficit.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I was talking to Jason. Somebody said metaphor. Yeah, I'm going to get to that and my next question too. But the he was talking about what he's receiving in his
Okay.
and he was talking about February. I think it's probably similar to some of the maybe I don't want to say well timelines or planetary alignments or whatever you want to call it, and some of the things people are putting out. But what he was talking about was I think February 16th there was like this fire, ascended master fire type of thing that further purifies us. It's there for us to go to work. But what I'm getting at is the bottom line is with what you're saying with these two polarities on the political landscape, for instance, is that you know universal law is universal law, and it's the universe is not it's not going to do for us. We've got to do it for ourselves. You know what I mean? And that's
Right.
what I love about what you're saying. And the second point I wanted to make to that person's comment was the other thing that you really bring to the table with what you're saying is as we observe all this stuff, whether it be a person on the global stage or whatever it is, we really got to start looking at this stuff as energetic, energetic impressions or energetic messages and see everything as energy and stop looking at it so literally and creating the biases within ourselves and those deficits within ourselves that you're describing.
Right, and I was just writing about something like that in my book. As far as the psyche goes, those biases are a refusal of our one of our own archetypes,
Yeah.
and then the choosing or the behavior mechanism of covering over that woundedness. And at that point, someone just commented 0 point, but at that point, um, that's called entanglement theory. And so at that point, you're polarized such, so those two particles become entangled such that the quantum field cannot be seen. And so that's humanity's deficit, is obviously everyone's not 0 pointed the fuck out, right? Like,
Yeah.
we can't have that. We have to, get there.
Yeah. That entanglement
So,
that entanglement seems like to present I mean, I'm just saying energetically in my head, it just seems like a blockage of energy, you know?
yeah, it absolutely is. And so all the archetypes within the subconscious are polarized. And so they just jet out when we get triggered. And then we find ourselves in different thought streams and different emotions. And that's how you can tell that you're no longer able to see the quantum field and you're completely engulfed in one of your archetypes. But that's also the point of access where you can begin to heal that. You know, you kind of go into a little bubble and transmute it, but I've developed a system where you can actually heal it, you know, through the
Wow.
conscious mind. And so if you get triggered, it's your own archetype that's coming out, you know, and you're projecting onto. If you go ahead and put that shit onto someone else or act out and don't take ownership of your shit, you know, then you're creating more trauma, really.
Yeah.
But, you know, at that point, you have work to do, and
Yeah. More
it's no one
internal.
else's.
Yeah. More internal blindness to that quantum field that you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I was asking earlier. I'll rephrase it, but you've already answered it. I'm just going to restate it and see if this is what you're saying. So I was saying, is there an archetype or archetypes that are present in a collective sense? Like people talk about
Oh,
energy coming down, but you're actually saying, as the universe is inside of us, and as we're traversing this whole thing, that they present themselves to us on an individual basis. It's kind of up to us to see that for what it is, as a message to us, as opposed to projecting it out on somebody else.
right. Because what is the quantum field? What is 5D? What is 0 point? Love repeating back onto itself. And so if you aren't able to see or connect with someone in vulnerability, in their innocence, you know, and love, you can't see the quantum. And
Yeah,
so you're not able to then see yourself. So you're gone at that point. You're in an
yeah,
archetype. So
yeah,
you are gone. There's no more
yeah,
you. You're in an old wound, an old behavioral pattern. And
yeah,
so, yeah.
yeah. I
So when you,
noticed. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
There's a little bit of lag. I had to. I was going to say. So I look at myself, and like even today, and I'll see something or someone, and or something will happen, and I'll think something. I'll be like, eh, like, you know what I mean? And but
Yeah.
I'm getting to the point, I think, where a lot of people are, right? I'll get into the point where I'll say, okay, wait a minute, you gotta, that's you're looking at, or you know what I mean? I mean, there's the, come on now. And it feels very human. It feels like, am I getting anywhere with this? I mean, am I really equalizing with this person? But I do the best I can. Is there a, is there an easier way to do this? You know what I mean?
So you're trying to connect with someone and they're just like, eh. And
I'm
then,
like, I
yeah.
I get the energy like, oh, here we go. And maybe it's because I'm tired, or maybe it's because of this or that, but I am developing this routine of when I go, which is me kind of projecting, beginning to project anyway. I may not verbalize it, but say, I know I'm disassociating. I know I'm creating, the potential of separation. So I bring them in, say, okay, you need to accept, you need to allow, you need to understand that there's no difference between that person and this person here. And so it's like I don't know, it's a very human embodying kind of thing for me, and it's been occurring more recently. And on one hand, I feel like, okay, I'm processing this and I'm doing okay, but it doesn't move real fast. I guess it takes work, like you said.
Yeah,
Right?
and I think what you could explore more is because once you can see yourself as innocent,
Yeah,
you can see others as innocent. And
yeah,
so even when their vibration or what they're talking about is
yeah,
like that 0 point, because I'm glad that you still feel like a human, because I
yeah,
don't. Like, I
yeah,
feel nothing like a human anymore. And so at 0 point, you allow, and there is no, and so
yeah,
you're just, because the quantum field is just the observer. And
yeah,
so, and
yeah,
so if you can, and so that's the counseling system that I built, is really to bring you into the observer. And so then, you know, identifying what are the thought streams there.
yes,
And
yeah,
then, and then, because those are most identifiable, because we're taught to live in our logic, in our masculine logic,
Yes.
right? And
Right.
so the second aspect is dropping into your emotions, because that's hard to do.
Yeah.
Especially when you're triggered. You want to stay up here and
Yeah.
fight and figure it
Rationalize.
out. Yep, and like all this shit. And so that's not actually going to allow you to heal it. And
Yeah.
so when you can take a step back and understand that we are each a very wise guru in charge of several mental patients. Like, that is what we're doing with the archetypes. Okay,
Yeah.
so each one of them belongs in an institution. And so it's our job as the quantum field to heal them and nurture them back to health. And so then we can take a step back and observe each archetype. So what are they thinking? What are they feeling? And what do they need? There is a need there. And then there's an unmet need there, and then a covering over with a behavior mechanism that says, this is how I'm supposed to get this need met. But it's not. So you have to 0 point that motherfucker out. And then you're integrating. And so there's no longer a shadow. So all that pain then, because you felt through that and worked through that, then ceases to exist. You send it back from where it came.
Yeah.
And that energetic signature can no longer live in your vessel, and so there's no more trigger there. There's no more trigger. And so so you've 0 pointed other things out, Todd, then? Because you seem to be understanding this very clearly.
No, yeah, I do. And you know, and what you said about the emotion thing, I struggled with that for a long time. But again, I've got the masculine energy and then, you know, the whole journey of the feminine and all that. But one thing I started to find was to sit with these feelings. You know, like yesterday, I talked about this yesterday, but in the morning I got up and I saw a couple of things, and one was kind of directed at me, and I'm like, that pissed me off, you know? So I laid down and I realized beneath that was a hurt. Okay. So I was like, okay, so I admit that to myself. For me, on a personal introspection, I was like, okay, so I'm being vulnerable. That hurt me. I admit that. I let myself feel it, and you know, it was transformed or whatever you want to call it. You know, but like you said, dropping into that emotion is kind of where I've gone into, and I can see. And I am not saying I've been doing this a long time, but I noticed that when I allowed it, that the resistance left, the separation left, and like you said, if somebody, for instance, came at me with agenda, I used to react a certain way. Now I am getting more clarity that they're just as innocent. They're just as pure, and just honor where they're coming from. I don't have to attach to that energy. I can just make a choice to not judge it and move a different direction. So I spend a lot of time not talking to people.
Me too, funnily enough. Yeah, because I can feel people's everything. You know, whether it's on Facebook or anything, and then it's not necessarily easy for me to clear that energy out of my field. And so it's like, well, and so my walk, you know, based on my astrology chart and my human design chart, is very much a solo journey, you know, and that's not necessarily fun, but it's a lot better than getting involved in all the garbage, you know.
For sure. For sure.
Keeping my field clean and just doing my work and doing what I can.
How do you, I'm just curious, on a personal level, how do you navigate all of this, taking this information in, building, keeping your field clean? And I know you have a family, right? Mm-hmm. You have a normal life. How do you do that?
It's really effortless. So, and so, because once I went into 5D, it was so fluid. It was just effortless. And so, and that's reality though. You know, in 5D, you're really transcending 3D and 4D. And so it's just this fluid, and I don't think about it in terms of choice, or the way the mind can in 3D or 4D.
I got you.
And so yeah, it's a lot. I mean, when you look at it on paper, like, because
Yeah.
I was working 70 hours raising 2 girls by myself and writing a book and running my 2 businesses. And so,
Wow.
yeah, it's a lot, but it's not an option. Like,
Yeah.
I don't get to stop. And so it's just gotten so much easier as far as my healing.
Yeah.
And so from that perspective, looking back, it's like, well, what I can obviously deal with a lot of shit,
Yeah.
and so now it's just like, okay, so this is going to be hard to put myself out there, and journey out of my comfort zone
Yeah.
and make a name for myself and build, you know,
But
all this.
that's indicative or a reflection of what you're saying. Like we were talking about the U.S. of we got to build. I mean, it's time to step out. It's not. It's this year is going to be feels extraordinary, not because the universe is going to come throw a pot of gold on all of us, but because we have the opportunity to expand in a very unique way that doesn't come around maybe very often. Is that kind of where we're at?
2019 is what's up. Like, yeah, but it's my Jupiter return too. So I knew this was coming. So then it was just, okay, creating channels of revenue
Mm-hmm.
and, working my way out of the matrix
Yeah.
completely. And what does that look like? And what is that going to take from me? Because I did everything I could to stay in my comfort zone.
Wow.
Well, it's
Wow.
challenging to feel everyone's everything, and actually the mechanism of the field through the psyche, which I explain in my book, is really that when you're entangled or when you're in a relationship, the other person's shadow comes through you without
Yes.
unbeknownst to you. And so it's just this natural course of these two coaxals kind of mirroring each
Yeah.
other so you kind of lose yourself in that relationship aspect because
Yeah.
there's no clear me then, and so
Yeah.
it's just so hard then to stay clear or keep my field clear, or keep me right
Yeah. Yeah.
when you're out there. And so
But like you said, as you are the quantum field, uh, even like in your situation with your family and the working, your field changes as you use the word the healing or institutionalizing all the archetypes or whatever it is. But like in the relationships, like Morgan said to her friend the other day, I'm actually able to see my feminine and my masculine, you know, in the same, because of the relationship. As you were talking about what comes through from the other person and yourself and that type of thing. But and well, I'm getting what you're saying too, because back to the empaths, back to the super sensitives, the ultra sensitives. I mean, that's been a big journey. So you're actually in this quantum field and you're actually seeing all this energy and you're able to just stay the observer. I think that might be why you made the comment about the not feeling human thing. Is it
yeah.
like an emotionless kind of thing or what?
Well, I have Sun conjunct Uranus, so I'm just Aquarius across the board. And so that's why I'm sure that this is my time to come full swing,
Yeah.
and do this. And so my sun is completely eclipsed. I was actually born on the ramp up to an eclipse, which, as you know, is extreme energy. And so I'm just extremely Aquarian. And
Yeah.
so the observer has it's just my mechanism, and so
Yeah.
it's becoming a lot easier to, because there's no more triggers necessarily. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure there will be when I go out there and people want to talk shit, but but as there's no more triggers, like, you learn, to trust the field, you know, you have to trust.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of it. It's just that, remaining conscious while, you know, working a job where 17-year-old children are like disrespectful and like traumatized and like they think that you're a certain thing and they've decided certain things about you because of the way that you look or the way, and like trying to just communicate and articulate, you know, that you don't communicate that way, and like I don't take part in that shit, and like, and so it's challenging.
The way you don't react, the way you don't act like everybody else.
I know, and so they just think, and so they can't place me. They can't figure out where I belong in their box of the conceptual framework of reality. They can't place me because I would explode every box that they try to put me in, and so.
Would you say that from the quantum, you know, being the observer, the first point of observation is our thoughts?
From my standpoint, I don't have any identification with thought.
Okay.
So if I start thinking and it tries to like latch on and gravitate, it's someone else's.
I got you.
So it's not mine.
Yeah.
So
really,
you completely revamp your whole system as far as what reality is, how you process information, how you process yourself, how you process other people. It's nothing like what it used to be, and so
that fluidity. I hear tones, you know, like some type of you know, and so what I'm kind of picturing is that fluidity as you get more into it, that quantum, the thoughts, those are the thoughts. It's not thoughts, but I mean that is the communication or the flow, or whatever you want to call it. I like what you said too, because if you start thinking, I mean, you're thinking. That's the mind, right?
Yeah, but even before I went into 5D, I actually started eating just fruit. And so from that standpoint, you know, I was somewhat awake in 4D though. Thoughts and feelings just became little bubbles. Like they couldn't even exist on the plane that fruit, and the vibration of fruit is. And so thoughts and feelings were just like little bubbles that you could pop, and like they had nothing to do with you. They were just like over there, and like, but they were your thoughts, but it was just like they couldn't even touch what it was. And so that's really because as soon as you latch onto a thought, you're gone. Just the same as when you get into an archetype. You can no longer see the field.
Or even another person's energy, I guess.
Yeah, because you're gone, and then you're objectified, or you've been taken over by form, right?
Yeah.
And so the other person then is taken over too, and is no longer, you know, subject. Is more, it's an objectification because it's a form. They become a form because you're completely engulfed in form too, and so you're gone, they're gone, the whole world's gone, and you're probably upset.
So that level of observation, or that observation, it's not just observing all the energies that you're feeling and seeing in other people that's theirs. They're all the same thing. It doesn't matter if it's a person, a thought, a feeling. It's all, you're observing it all. Yeah.
And there's no labels. It's all experiential data after 5D. And so there's no labels, you know. And then when you're first starting out, it's like you assume that everyone else feels the same way, you know, because there's a certain aspect of 3D and 4D that assumes that everyone is the same, or everyone thinks the same, or everyone knows the same thing that you know. And so there's a very immature sense of, well, this must be what everyone is feeling or experiencing, you know, even as I got up into 5D. This is what the spiritual people that I know are experiencing. No. So the person who did my soul retrieval was down here, and she did my soul retrieval, and then I went, and I was gone.
Yeah.
And she was like, what the fuck? And I was like, what the fuck? And so
Mhm.
there's no words for it. But then you have to integrate that and come back down into 3D and live it, and still provide for your kids and
Yeah.
do the
Wow.
things of chopping wood and
Carrying
carrying
water.
water.
Yeah. Now, do you work with people one-on-one? Are you focusing strictly on the book and what's coming from that?
Yeah, I do both. So I'll just do like one-off astrology readings and then kind of infuse a little bit of the depth astrology aspect as far as because I can see your wounds and your shadow in your chart. And so I'll just offer a little piece of, this is kind of what's going on at home with you and your mom, or, and so just try to get into the counseling aspect a little bit more, even for people who aren't necessarily awake or younger
Yeah.
generations. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, but I really like to work one on one with people because even spiritual people, I'm still like taking their brain and fucking and like because it's just
Like a corkscrew.
it's just yeah just like after they
That's
meet
funny.
me and like
Yeah.
learn about what I do, their brain is garbage and their
Yeah.
paradigm shifts completely. And so
And how do people, or how do you attract your clientele, or where can people find you?
on my Facebook page, or I'm in Appleton, Wisconsin,
Yeah.
and um,
You're a
so I'll
cheesehead.
be well, I'm not, but
I'm
they
just kidding with
they are.
you. Yeah. Get the corkscrews out.
Yeah.
And then your book, you said they're still doing some stuff, formatting it and that type of thing.
The cover
So
art is going to be ridiculous.
what are these two pictures you sent? You want me to pull them
So
up?
that's just the two companies. So the prism is where we go into your shadow aspect or the archetype. You're shining the light of or the light or the mind of God into your shadow. And
Yeah.
then we're acknowledging that part of yourself and then healing that wound through the chakra systems based on the psychologies of the chakras and developmental processes of each chakra, and
Wow.
then reparenting that child aspect because
Reparenting.
because there's an aspect of the mother that needs to be nurturing, and then there's an aspect of logos of our father that needs to help us reason effectively, to what we want and how to get it and how to process that accordingly,
Wow.
step by step. And so this is you know what a conscious parent, even though we're still all doing our work and there's by no means perfect parents no matter what, but so it's just the fluidity of the feminine and then the reason and the logic and the exclusivity of the masculine that says no, and the power of no and the power of logos. And so
Wow.
you know
I love that explanation. Powerful explanation. And what's this one here?
so that is the Constellation of Psyche astrology. And so, everything I do is really for the child within and then all the children in the world. And so when you heal the child within, you're also healing um, your children because you can understand and see their vulnerability, their innocence, and then accept them wholeheartedly for the creative genius and allow them to actually awaken you, because the children are the awakeners, because at each age your the child will mirror the wounds of the child within, and so in the father and the mother. And so if you haven't healed your inner child, you're projecting those beliefs or your shadow aspect onto your children. And so it's all about the kids. And so I'm
Wow.
seeing the prism also being hybrid into like a parenting tool for children called the rainbow or the rainbow grid.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so really bringing that into a conscious parenting aspect of how to build the human psyche correctly on divine principles in a 5D grid.
Man, powerful stuff, man. I
I
knew it
know,
would be,
so
I knew it.
exciting.
I love
It's
it. I love it.
crazy though. It's crazy.
Yeah, but I love the flow, and I really look forward to you getting your book out and seeing where you go with all this. We're here to support you. Uh, that's what this is, a platform for people like you, and you're doing really unique and interesting work. I got to ask you one more question though. I gotta ask you. I love your humor. I've always loved that intelligent type humor, that sharp humor. Uh, do you look for that stuff every day? I mean, how does that
Yeah,
come to you? Yeah.
and I'm very picky.
Yeah, I can tell. I can tell. It's yeah.
Yeah,
I really yeah. Sometimes I'll put your stuff up and 6 people will get it. Other times
really.
it'll be like 66 people. Yeah. No, I really
I love
enjoy
it.
it. It helps me sometimes. I'll see something you do and I'm just like, oh my God, chill the fuck out, you know? I mean, you know, just relax, you know. So
Yeah.
that's a great message because there is so much complexity, you know, from all the different perspectives, especially in like the work I do, and we all go through it. And sometimes it's just a real simple kick in the ass that, or a slap on the head, you know, just to make us step back and go, well, you know, I mean, that is the observer. If you can just laugh at yourself and just like, come on, man.
Well, yeah, but that's our guides and angels perspective too, though, because this
Yeah,
is a divine comedy. Like we should not
exactly.
be taking any of this shit seriously.
Yeah,
And so, but
yeah,
that's very much the Aquarian side of me, which is I
yeah.
think all of me. But
Very
it's just
entertaining.
very fucking
Yeah,
weird and quirky and like,
yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah. My sister's an Aquarian, and she has that same little sharp intellect humor going. Yeah. Well, listen, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on. I look
thank
forward to your,
you
yeah, really, thank you. And and I look forward to your book coming out and let us know when it does. And maybe we can coerce you back on again.
for sure.
You take care. Best to you and your family. Peace
Bye.
out. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Allison.